Floors, the first thing beneath you when you rise from bed, the surface that bears your weight as you move through the world. From the quiet shuffle of morning footsteps to the hurried strides of a daily commute, from the tiled corridors of an office to the warm wooden planks of a home. We are in constant dialogue with the floor, yet how often do we truly notice it? So, what is a floor? We walk on them every day, step by step. From sunrise to dawn, we rely on it. It serves as a foundation, a plane of existence, a stage upon which our lives unfold. Yet, we rarely question it. It is so inherent, so absolute, so foundational to us, to our communities, our cities, and our planet. We take them for granted, thinking that they would never fade, thinking that they would be forever there. So much so that we never seem to ask, what truly makes a floor a floor? Is the definition of a floor simply the surface we walk on? Does it require the solidity of brick, tile, wood, asphalt, or concrete? Can a field of grass be a floor? A frozen lake? A stretch of sand? A flowing river? Jesus walked on water. Was the ocean his floor? Does it have to be smooth, but perhaps not too smooth? Does it have to be flat? How flat? 0 degrees flat? Perhaps 5 degrees? How about 15? 50? How far must the floor lean before it ceases to be a floor and becomes a wall? And if we build a floor upon the wall, has the wall become a floor? Can a floor be unstable? Can a floor be invisible? Can a floor shift? Can a floor float? Can a floor move? By its simplest definition, a floor is the surface we interact with, a place of stability, a plane that orients us. But what if we remove its defining traits, solidity, tangibility, and functionality? Does it still remain a floor? Perhaps the real question is not what makes a floor, but what happens when a floor is no longer a floor. Convention tells us a floor is static, unmoving. But is that true? What of an escalator, a conveyor belt, the humming steel of a train beneath our feet? These surfaces hold us, bear our presence. We stand on them and interact with them. They provide boundaries and structural stability. They separate the above from the below, much like conventional floors. Yet they constantly move, never static. If a floor must be unmoving, does that mean all floors on the Earth itself, a planet that spins at 1,000 miles per hour, was never a floor to begin with? Or is a floor only required to be still in relation to us? If that's the case, does a skateboard become a floor the moment we stand upon it? And what of floors that do not exist in the physical world, in virtual spaces, like the pixelated landscapes of Minecraft? We walk upon digital floors as we do in reality. They provide space, structure, and a sense of place, the same quality as the real-life counterpart. Yet they are intangible, composed of codes rather than woods and stone. can they still be defined as a floor, even if our physical body could never truly make contact with them? But then again, according to quantum physics, we never truly touch anything. A microscopic gap remains between the atom of our body and those of our surroundings, including the floor itself. If we have never touched the physical floor, and we could never touch the digital floor, then what is a floor? Are floors even real at all? Or are they merely an idea we have somehow, for some reason, collectively agreed upon? Perhaps a real floor never existed in our physical world. Perhaps floors exist only as an imperfect echo of some greater, intangible essence, what Plato would call the form of a floor. If his theory of the forms holds, then no floor we have ever walked upon has been a real floor. Only a flawed reflection, a particle of the ideal, non-physical, immutable blueprint of a floor that exists beyond our reach. If you recognize a surface as a floor only because it resembles our concept or the form of a floor more than other surfaces, then does a floor exist only in contrast to what is not a floor? Can we define what a floor is strictly based on the theory of relativity and its relation to the surroundings? Does a floor only exist under the presence of walls, trees, or buildings around? Between an apple and a carpet, the carpet aligns more closely with our understanding of a floor. Yet, when placed beside a sidewalk, the carpet fades in comparison. The sidewalk is undeniably more of a floor than the fabric beneath our feet. Perhaps a floor is not defined by its intrinsic nature, but by its relationship to what surrounds it. An identity shapes not by essence, but by contrast. But what happens when a space folds on itself? When a room takes the shape of a sphere, in a place without walls, without ceiling, without floor? Does a floor still exist? If there's no distinction between where we stand and what surrounds us, can we still call one surface a floor and another a wall? If there's no clear boundary and no clear sense of above and below, does the ceiling become part of the floor? And if we expand the sphere, turn it inside out, does it not become the earth itself? Could it be that what we call a floor is nothing more than a shifting perspective? That the ground beneath us is both the floor and ceiling, depending on where we stand. And if we step back far enough, is the floor itself simply a vast, infinite floor? A floor is more than something we walk on. It is an idea, a concept that shapes how we understand space, movement, and the world around us. Perhaps the question what makes a floor is one without an answer. Perhaps it is not meant to be answered at all. It may as well be a paradox, a matter of perception, defined not by any single truth, but by the lens through which we view it. The floor we stand upon defines us, just as we define them. Our roles shift with our footing. On the floor of an art school, I am a student. On the floor of a supermarket, I am a customer. On the floor of my own home, I am myself. Does the ground beneath us shape who we are? To me, the floor is a medium, one that carries history, culture, and most of all, identity. My understanding of a floor, shaped by my experience, my background, and my culture, will not be the same as yours or anyone else's, nor will it ever be. I grew up in Hong Kong, a subtropical city built upon concrete, asphalt, and tiled surfaces. To me, that was the floor. That was the foundation of my world. But when I traveled to Norway, I saw floors of ice, snow, and gravel, surfaces I had never thought to call a floor. And yet, to those who walked upon them every day, they were as much of a floor as the ones I knew. A floor is not an absolute. It is shaped by the place we inhabit, the cultures we are born into, the memories that we lived through, and the environments that surrounds us. It is not merely something we walk on. It is something we carry with us. There's a saying in Chinese, 立足之地, briefly translates to a place to set foot on. It is a metaphor for foundation, position, and identity. It also carries the meaning of the sense of belonging, almost like home. Floor is foundation. Floor is irreplaceable. Floor cannot be taken away. My floor is my 立足之地. It is the sum of my morals, my perspective, my heritage. It is the ground upon which I stand, the foundation of who I am. And yet, my floor is fading. The city that shaped me now see my beliefs, democracy, freedom of speech, my identity as a Hong Konger, as something forbidden. My floor is being taken away from me, piece by piece. What happens when a floor is no longer a floor? What happens when I am no longer myself?